all eyes of the universe are on planet Earth right now. And there will come a time when planet Earth will be the schoolhouse that people will come to watch, to see how it was done. And all of you will be uncovered at that point. Every thought you've ever had will be in the archives, will be in the Akashic records, which can be read. During the times of Atlantis, after Atlantis sank, after the final pieces went under, spirits stopped time and decided that if ever you were able to get Earth to that level again, that you would all jump in, you would all incarnate, you would all try to be here to push it over the edge. The whole line shuffled around to where the highest potentials came to the front of the line. And here you are. You are the ones that are at the front of the line. You're the ones that have your space reserved on this planet. Do not think that you are here just doing nothing. You're here on purpose. And furthermore, you have a job to do.
I would love to understand why it's been veiled and hidden from the human race that we are these magnificent, powerful, infinite souls. Still have questions after watching these videos? Perfect. Come hang out with me on Wake Up Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern, where we will answer your questions live. And you never know what surprise guests might show up. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Steve Rother, who channels the group. And now this is a collective of advanced beings, and he has actually been invited to speak at the United Nations 5 different times with this collective channeling. So today we're going to learn all about this and ask him some questions. And if we're lucky, the group's going to come through and we'll see what we can answer. So Steve, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Laurie. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm excited about this. This will be fun.
This will definitely be fun, because if the pre-conversation is any indication of what's to come, this is going to be a pretty interesting ride, I think. So I think where I'd like to start, I said in your introduction that you've been invited to speak to the United Nations, and you did that on 2 different continents. And there's a really cool story here. I would love for you to start there, and then we'll talk about what the group is.
When I started channeling, it was very local. The internet was fairly new. It's been around for a while, but I've been channeling for 30 years professionally. And in the very beginning, we were looking at maybe doing we were going to local events. We were going to a friend of ours who used to have a gathering of 20 or 30 people. And then we'd be invited to some other place in the United States where we could go talk to 20 or 30 people, small groups like that. And that's kind of how the work started. And one day I got a phone call, and the phone call was from a lady in Vienna. And she said, I hear that you're doing seminars. I know that you're probably not going to come to Vienna just because I ask you, but if you do ever come this way, I'd like to do. And I said, fine, I'll take your name and phone number and put everything down. It was great. But obviously I can't just afford to go there. We don't draw that many people. I'm sure we would not be able to cover our expenses, basically. So I told her that. 20 minutes later, I get a phone call from a lady in Holland. And she says, I want to bring you over here. She says, I've got a whole bunch of people that I gather with. I want to bring you over, and maybe we can, spend a week going around to these different places doing seminars. And I'm thinking, okay, now maybe that'll cover the money. Maybe I can go to Vienna at the same time. And I'm joking with Barbara. I said, you want to go to Europe? We've never been out of the United States. You want to go take some journeys? You want to go have some fun? And she's just kind of laughing with me. So after that, I got another phone call, and it was somebody in Denmark that wanted to do the same thing. So we were able to set up small seminars. I did like 5 different seminars in Holland, and I did one in Aarhus, Denmark, which is the capital city. And then I figured, okay, I'll go to Vienna and do a seminar in Vienna too. And when I'm talking to her, she says, "Oh, by the way, would you mind talking at the United Nations?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Of course I'd love to talk to the United Nations. But tell me about it." And like I said, it's not what we call the big room. It wasn't the General Assembly. What it is a group of people that were in the United Nations. They're employees of the United Nations, and they bring in speakers on a regular basis, whoever is interesting. Well, it turns out that I was sending out these monthly messages called the Beacons of Light. I still send them out every month. But back then, they were traveling inside the United Nations they have their own email system, and it was bouncing around in there. So a lot of people at the United Nations knew us and knew what I was. So I went. We had probably 50 or 60 people that were there. It was wild because I was nervous, obviously, talking at the United Nations for the first time. And we also had people from, different organizations are housed in different parts of the part of the United Nations. UNESCO is really big there, but the other thing that was big there is the Atomic Energy Agency is based in Vienna. And I had scientists from the Atomic Energy Agency that were asking questions of the group in channel. And I never thought anything like that would happen. And they said, "This is great. We want to have you back. When can you come back?" And we ended up going back 3 different times, 3 years in a row. And then, as I mentioned, independently of that, I got asked to come to the United Nations in New York at the headquarters. And I went there twice. We did that one twice at a time. So you couldn't have convinced me. Of course, you couldn't have convinced me in high school that I'd write 8 books either, and that those 8 books would be translated into 19 languages. This is all from the group. This wasn't me. This was the group arranging things very synchronistically to where if I open the door, I have to fall into it. So that's basically what happened. And that's how we spoke at the United Nations.
That's amazing. Well, why don't you share with us who the group is and how this group contacted you initially?
Well, it's an interesting story. In the beginning, I was a general contractor. My wife, Barbara, was very much into metaphysics. She was going to a church called Church of Religious Science, fairly well-known metaphysical church. And I'd say, "Honey, I'll stay home, take care of the kids. You go play with your friends. You go do your metaphysical things. I don't know that language," and so forth. And I was a general contractor. So in my world, every other word was started with F. And literally, it was a totally different environment than I could have dreamed of going from. So I was very much a drag along in the beginning. What happened was simple. We were looking for something to do on New Year's Eve. I don't drink, so we're always looking for something unusual to do in New Year's Eve. And she said, "Well, my church is having this gathering. Why don't you come?" She says, they all have been teasing me. They don't really think you exist, so it'd be nice to show up." So I said, "Okay, I'll come to you. I'll do this thing." I said, "I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to be with you the whole time. If I get into trouble, just excuse me, let me know what I need to know." And I was planning on just being there, staying with her, smiling and nodding. That was my technique for getting through the night. So we went. As soon as we walked in the door, they split us up. So that shot that. Wonderful people. Of course, they were wonderful people. And when they found out I was new and didn't know my way around, they were so helpful. Everybody just wanted to, make me feel comfortable. So it was really a wonderful evening. The whole idea was we were going to take a piece of paper right down the middle, write the things that we wanted to release on one side. That was from 1995. And the things that we wanted to bring in from 1996. Then we were supposed to go through the New Year's and meet back on the beach as the sun rose. Well, there's one place in California where you can actually be on the beach. It's all the way down by Mexico and Coronado Beach, and that's where we were. So now I am feeling a little more comfortable. I got to meet these people, and I'm a contractor, so I built a fire. I built a monster fire. And I'm over here in the smoke. There's always one place where the smoke is. So I'm hiding very well in the smoke. And the next morning, there was only probably 12, 15 people that showed up for this. The leader gets up there. He tears his thing in half. He throws the stuff he wanted to release in the fire. Everybody goes, "Oh." I go, "Okay, this is great. This is easy." And then he starts to read, because that's what you're supposed to do. We had it's called a smudge stick, but I didn't know that then. It's still like a burning rope. And we're supposed to hold the burning rope up to the sun, the rising sun, and read the things that we wanted to bring into 1996. Okay, so he's doing that. He holds it up and he says, "I'm being told that Steve has to go first." And I'm freaking out over here, just kind of, okay, you know what? I can do this. No problem. He comes over and hands me the thing. I get out of the smoke. I come over to where people can see me. And I tear the thing in paper in half. I throw the paper in half that we wanted to release in the fire. Everybody goes, "Ho, that's great." And all I have to do is read 3 little lines. They're very simple. I hold them up and I can't read them. I can't focus on them. I can't remember what they said. I can't do anything about it. And all of a sudden, the group grabbed me. That's the best way I can say. They hugged me. And they hugged me so tight, the tears started flowing. I was taken out. For me, it felt like a half an hour because it was going on forever. I was probably only out for 3 or 4, maybe 5 minutes. But I was completely out, and I'm sitting there holding this thing up to the rising sun, holding this paper in my hand, and the tears, I can feel my shirt getting completely wet from the tears that are coming down. Very unlike a general contractor, very much less in a different world. And that's when they really came to me. That's the first time they came to me. They didn't give me any information right off the bat, but I became aware that I had this interconnection. And I started communicating with it. And they started giving me messages, which I started writing down and sending out on the internet. And we had email back then, but we didn't have social media. So we had these message boards and chat rooms and so forth that I would be in and be able to bring some of this stuff up. And in one of these message boards, we had other people that were learning to channel. And they told me right off the bat, they said, you have to ask them who they are, because if they won't tell you who they are, they're the bad guys, and you don't want to be channeling them. And I'm going, "Oh, I didn't know we had bad guys." So I asked the group, I said, "Tell me who you are. Tell me what dimension you're from. I've got a friend of mine who's channeling Vaiwamas from the 23rd century, the 21st dimension, and I'm trying to figure out who these guys are." And they said, we're not going to do that. And I said, "Well, if you're not going to do that, then I have to cut you off." And they said something I'll never forget. They said, "We honor all of your choices." And they became quiet. And for about 2 or 3 days, I was walking around where this big hole where my heart used to be. I felt like I finally got a fish on the line and I had to let it go. It's one of those things that I was really getting somewhere and I had to drop it. So anyway, after about 3 days, I came back to him and I said, "Okay, knock, knock, are you still there?" And they said, "We've been with you for many lifetimes. We're not leaving now." And I said, "Well, if you're not going to tell me who you are, tell me why you won't tell me who you are." And they said, "Now you've asked the perfect question. We want to bring messages through you for the good of humanity. And we want them judged by the love content of the message and not because of a label placed on it." And I said, "Okay." I said, I can't argue with that. I will do that. And I started bringing them out. I was aware that they were multiple. I was aware that it wasn't one entity talking to me. It was a bunch. So when I put the messages on the message board, I would say my group is saying this, and my group is saying this, and other people would write back and say, "Well, what does your group say about this?" And that's actually where the words the group came from. They didn't want to tell me for a long time who they were because they really wanted us to take the messages, not because of some label pretending to be higher than another label. They don't see any of that way. So they have
Right.
a
So on
totally,
the other side, there is no good, better, best, right?
that's correct. That's correct. So after about 15 years, they told me that they were from what we call the angelic realm. So I do know that they're from the other side. It's not other ETs or other beings that I'm channeling multidimensionally, but it is basically from the other side. And that was the best that they gave me during those times. Since then, all seven of them, now there's still one that hasn't identified themselves, but they've all identified themselves with personalities and expertise. I had the scientist of the heart who quite often talks about quantum mechanics and how that relates to our world. And we have Ilra, who's going to make you laugh the whole time. We have the keeper of time who talks in an English accent, who comes in and speaks about the illusion of time, different things of that nature. So it's been quite a journey, but that is how the group approached me. Very unusual, I really had to lean against it. It was not something I normally would have accepted. And probably my greatest critic in the beginning was my wife. She graduated about 5 years ago, so she's not here anymore. But she called herself a recovering Catholic. So she was under the impression that only the Pope spoke to God, and she knew I wasn't holy. She knew that was absolutely out of my bailiwick. So anyway, that's kind of what happened, and that's how I started channeling. From then, the books started just flowing in from the channels that would come in, the information that came in, and I found myself traveling with Barbara all over the world. And for 15 years, we traveled a different country every month. We'd be 2 weeks in a country, and then we'd come home for 2 weeks, and we do our virtual light broadcast, which back then was probably one of the very few broadcasts like that were put on YouTube and be able to do that. But that was the story. That's kind of how I got started.
That brings me to a question because we're talking about 1995. I remember 1995 very well. I was already out of college and I'm spiritual now. And the conversations I have now are markedly different than the conversations I was having in 1995. This was not mainstream. People were not talking about near-death experiences. You were labeled probably crazy, kooky. You didn't have the respect that I think that you have now because people are so much more open. They're so much more used to this. I
That's
mean,
correct.
a lot of people. So, how in the world did you navigate a 1995 experience with this collective group so evolved, speaking about things that nobody would have been talking about back then?
There were other channels back then. We had Ruth Montgomery, we had Jane Roberts, we had Edgar Casey. We had people that were doing it back then, but they were considered, like you say, on the periphery. The biggest challenge that I had during those times was that there were people that actually believed that there were evil entities that could take you over. I don't believe that anymore. Not at all.
No, I
Not at
don't
all.
believe that either from my experiences on the other side, but I still think that there are people who believe that.
That's
I,
correct. And
I
we had
see
a
enough
lot more
stuff
of that.
sometimes in the comments about these videos about people's perception of that fear-based thinking.
Correct. Well, that was the biggest problem we had at that time. And I just decided I was going to ignore it. I didn't have much choice, in all honesty. I had a small construction company. We had 7 people that worked for us. We subbed most of our work out. We specialized in banks and businesses, mostly stores and storefronts. I did a lot of finish work and carpentry and things of that nature. And all of a sudden, my business started closing. I was doing the same thing I was doing before, but when you're a contractor, you bid jobs and you get jobs and you do them and you bid more jobs. I was bidding jobs and not getting a single thing. I was lowering my price and not getting anything. All the things that I would do to normally bring the business back and bring it back to life were not working. It was really obvious the group was closing a door on me. I was petrified because I was supporting, we had 2 kids, supporting the family. She was working at the time, but not making the money that I was. So I was basically supporting the family. I was very worried about it. And one thing led to another. the book started selling. I tell you, we have publishing on demand now. We didn't have publishing on demand back when I wrote the first book. And I brought my family together and I said, I'm about to make a huge investment on printing 3,000 books that I'm going to have to print in order to get a decent price on them. I said, tell me what you think. Am I crazy? And they all encouraged me to do it. I did it. The interesting part is I put it on my website. When you ordered a book back then, probably the same today, when you're actually having a printer print your book, it takes about 30 days to send them everything you need to send them and for them to print it and give you back actual copies. By the time I got my first copies, I had sold half of the books that I had ordered. I had sold 1,500 books already, right off the bat. I couldn't believe, and these are things that normally don't happen to people. But I do believe the group has opened doors. They've closed other ones. They've led me through a lot of these aspects. I probably would not have stepped in there. I didn't have the courage to do that myself, but they helped me. They literally opened doors, pushed, made things available to me in different ways.
So tell me a little bit about what it feels like to channel this group, because I know that there are different types of channels. Some, like Edgar Casey, was a sleeping prophet and he wouldn't really remember the things that he was channeling, and others remember all of it. So how does this work for you?
I'm a conscious channel. I'm very much aware of where I'm at, what I'm doing. I don't always have control. I'm very technical, and I've built most of the computers in my studio here. So I'm very technical. But when the group comes in, it's like I'm training an idiot. They don't know anything. They can't handle the volume or anything else. So I've had challenges with that before too. But the group doesn't take me over. I'm very much here. I have to. They never have given me anything that I have questioned or that has been against my belief systems in some way. It all seems to fit in just perfectly. What does it feel like? It feels wonderful, absolutely wonderful. They've also told me I don't age when I channel. So I try to channel often. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Maybe I should try channeling.
Well,
Wow.
you do it your own way. I believe everybody channels. I think we call it different things. I really do. I think the musician hears something and they have to replicate it. The artist sees something and they have to find a way to bring it through. We channel all the time, little bits.
So you said something that I find interesting, that they haven't said anything to you that challenged your own belief system. But I've got to believe, in hearing these messages over 30 years, some of what you thought to be true in the beginning, you probably don't subscribe to anymore. So,
Right.
can you share a couple of things that you were like, I believed this in 1994, and now we're in 2026. I can't believe that anymore because I have had enough contact and communication with the group to understand and see things differently.
Well, one of the things was when I first started moving into this energy, our oldest son had reached, I think, 18 or 19 years old, and he moved out of the house. So I took over his room and I was going to make it my meditation room because I'm learning all about these things. I'm moving into this metaphysical arena. I want to find out. People told me if I'm going to be spiritual, I have to learn to meditate. So I fixed the pillows. I had my tingsha bells. I knew where north was. I did everything there. And I would be there, waiting to go into this meditation and do my tingsha bells on all my chakras. And and the group would say, Steve, are you ready yet? I go, wait a minute. I'm not there. Just a couple more breaths. And they go, Steve, are you ready yet? I go, and finally I go, okay, I'm ready. And they wouldn't talk to me. It was hilarious. So basically I had these beliefs that I had to do certain things in order to be spiritual. And they're about practical magic. That's what they're about. And although I can meditate, I do meditate today, I don't have to meditate to talk to them. That's the main thing. It's very
I'm really
practical.
glad you said that. When I was describing to you before we got on this about that download that I got that became those videos, the
Right.
full title of those videos were called "Uncover Your Soul's Purpose: What You Don't Know Is Holding You Back, No Meditation Required." Because I
Ah,
felt when
perfect.
I got the download for them, there was such a massive push on the spiritual side, meditate,
Yes.
meditate, meditate. And I'm not a meditator. If I sit down to meditate, I fall asleep. It doesn't matter if I just woke up from 10 hours of good sleep or 3, it doesn't matter. I fall asleep. And so I do something called walking meditation. I'm just in
That's good.
nature. So it's like everybody has their own path. And I don't think that there's only one, oh, this is spiritual. If you want to be spiritual, you have to do this. So I'm glad that we're talking about this. I haven't talked about it a lot on my show. And I think that it gives people permission to do what feels the best for them.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, we all know how to be spiritual. We have a spirit deep within us that knows its way around. It's real simple. We put on these belief systems. The group calls it a bodysuit.
Mhm.
But basically, we have all these belief systems. We learn about things, and they have a difference between beliefs and belief systems. A belief is something you believe in, no problem. But if you have a belief system, that means that if you believe in this, you also have to believe in all these other things. They call that BS. And they say many of your belief systems actually get in the way of your practical magic. And if you just look at yourself as a person walking down the street, can you meditate in an elevator? That was one of the exercises they gave me. And I ended up teaching in a couple of classes. How do you actually go into a deep meditation while you're walking, while you're doing something? Can you check in with your spirit while you're doing all that? And the answer is yes to all those things. We have all these belief systems that have gone before that I believed that we had to do. And turns out the group didn't need any of them. The group is very practical about a lot of these things, and they love to laugh. Oh my God, the laughter on the other side of the veil is it's amazing. And sometimes I have to wait for them to stop laughing to actually do that. So that's kind of the experience that I have a lot of.
That's a great segue into a question I wanted to ask you, which is how are they different than we are in our human form?
Well, they're infinite. So that right off the bat is really challenging. We are infinite as spirits, but we have to hide some of the perfection that we have. Let me throw this at you and see if it resonates with you. We have a crystal. This crystal is a beautiful crystal. We're going to call it the higher self. You have a ray of light, perfect white light coming from home, heaven, if you will. It hits the crystal, and the white light is perfect. It's got all the colors in it, everything. Hits a crystal, divides up into colors like a prism. And we actually have 11 different dimensions going at the same time. In other words, there's 11 Steves. And another one across from here, he didn't channel. He didn't take the challenge. He didn't do it. He's still a contractor. Over here, he's married to somebody else. Over here, he's a bachelor. You know, whatever the case, we have all these different experiences of the same spirit happening simultaneously. What's happening right now is those dimensional walls are starting to thin, and we're getting information from all around. I'm sure you've interviewed people that talk about the Mandela effect. That's a perfect example of dimensional walls thinning. We remember something being a certain way, but it was only that way in this dimension over here. So these are all taking place right now too. So they've got some really fascinating, and that was one of the things that we talked about in the most recent book that I read, Crossing the Veil, which is all about going home.
So you said that there were 11. Is that a number that they have given you? Because I've also heard other people talk about infinite numbers, not just as like a set number.
That's true. That's true. It is infinite. But we humans have a problem. We can't actually understand infinity.
Yeah.
So, what they basically say is that they are groups of 12, which includes the higher self. So, they are multiples infinite numbers of 12 that basically divide off. Michio Kaku is one of my favorite scientists that I follow on a fairly regular basis. He was very big in developing the string theory, which is really wonderful. And he's the one that actually validated the 11 for me, because he actually said very much that in his early work with the string theory, he was trying to get it to fit into Einstein's theory of relativity, and they didn't match. He couldn't get it to go. When he took it into 11 dimensions, it all fit perfectly. So he was the one that actually and sometimes when I hear things like that, the group says, pay attention. And I was paying attention that day. So I would have to say that originally came from Michio Kaku, but you're absolutely correct. We are infinite. There's not just 12 of us. There's a multiple. It's difficult to understand, but we use the illusion of 11 because it's a great way to kind of describe it.
Sure. So just now when you were talking, you said that sometimes they'll say, pay attention to this. Can you give me a few examples, or us a few examples, of things that they have asked you to pay attention to that you went, huh, okay.
I'm driving down the street and I see that they're changing out street signs. They went from the yellow school bus signs to these bright green ones. The group says, pay attention. I have no clue what they're talking about, but I do that. And sometimes they'll say, pay attention to the street sign that's coming up, whatever the case. I simply take it in. It's like I take an energy snapshot of it. That's all I need. Later, they'll tell me a whole story about that. They'll tell me a whole channel. In that particular case, it wasn't about the changing color. It was about human truth changing and that we evolve. And what used to attract our attention doesn't attract our attention anymore. So now we're coming up with new truths. And they came up with this whole beautiful channel about new truths that didn't mention the signs at all, but I had to pay attention to get that signal, to get that seed that they plant. So that's part of what was taking place. That's a pretty good example of what happened.
Well, you've accumulated a lot of readings in 30 years. Is there a central message that comes up from the group over and over again?
Yes. That we are empowered. We are creator beings. We have the ability to create everything. We think of God as having all these wonderful abilities. We have those abilities, each and every one of us. We've not discovered it. We've not uncovered all of them. Each person has little tuning fragments that they can tune into certain parts of it, but we have it all. And if we trust ourselves, we learn to step into it and actually use this stuff. That's what the empowerment's about. They told a story a while back that ended up being the name of our company. It's a Spavo. The story was about a young boy coming up in the days of Lemuria. One of the customs we had in Lemuria was that we would find someone older than us, and we would offer to be their transition person. In other words, if they thought they were dying or if they thought they were sick, they would call us. We would go and be with them until they either got better and went back to work or whatever, or when they died. Because actually leaving this planet, the way that we leave it is critical to us coming back in. We have to sometimes do things over and over again because we go into fear when we die sometimes. We should be teaching this in school. Why aren't we? Every child is going to experience death over and over again. Plus, we have to deal with our own death. We should be teaching these things, and we don't. So the group is really big on this. So they started telling this story. The young boy gets a call shortly after he made his connection. The gentleman that he's worried about is named A2. A2 reaches him and says, I think I'm leaving. Please help me cross over. And I want to leave something behind. Well, it turns out that E2 was a linguist, and he studied the really ancient languages of Lemuria, which go back much further than our time. And he said, there's a word coming that we need to bring back. It's a word that was used for hello and goodbye. It was kind of like ciao or aloha, or anything of that nature. And the word is Espavo. And if you literally translate it, it means thank you for taking your power. That's their message. If each one of us holds our power, we all step up. All of humanity steps up to the next level. That's what we're here for.
Wow. Well, can we go ahead and tap into the group and begin to ask
Of
them
course,
questions? Is that how that works?
it'll work any way you want. I need just a
Okay.
couple seconds to kind of slow my brain down
Okay.
and let them in. But give me just a couple minutes here. Greetings, dear ones. I am Observer. I look from afar to give you a view of humanity from a different perspective. But you have questions. Please, let's go to those.
The first question I have is that when Steve and I first began talking, I asked him if he knew anything about the channel that I've created here and the audience that I speak to. And he said that he consulted the group and the group said yes. So there must be a reason that the group wanted to address this collective group who tunes in. So I'm curious to what that is.
There is a family of light, is the easiest way to put it. Now, very similar to the ways that you have different colors on your planet, the reality is there are different flavors of the light as well. But you happen to be in the same family that he is. And that's what we told him. When he started to do research on you to find out what you had done, we told him you can do all the research you want, but it wasn't necessary. She is part of the same family. And that's what we told him.
Wow. So I guess the first thing I would ask you is what message do you have? Because you would be privy to the people and the group and the collective that tune into videos like this to watch. What message do you have for the people who are watching and tuning in?
You're in a changing planet right now. Things are shifting very drastically right now. We see it in a different way than most of you do. Well, we like to share that vision with you whenever possible. We see very clearly that you're moving from a third dimensional reality into a fifth dimensional reality. Moving into a higher frequency as you are is difficult because many of the things that you have built your world on do not fit in the higher realms. So releasing some of the older belief systems, some of the old ways of doing things, and daring to try on new things becomes one of the critical aspects. Now, if you turn on your news right now, or you look at however you get your news, you'll see that planet Earth is pretty well divided. That's one of the things that all of you can work with here to bring it in harmony. If you are on one side of an argument or another, you have clearly been divided because humans aren't divided by nature. So the reality is start looking at ways that you can understand each other in different ways. And stop pointing fingers saying this is right and this is wrong. In the higher vibrations, there is no black and white. It's all shades of gray. And that produces a whole new environment. So what we ask you all to do is to simply do what you were probably doing anyway, to learn to love, to learn to put things in a different aspect. And most of you that we are speaking to right at this moment are teachers and healers. Whether you know it or not, you have brought something in to build this new world. You're carrying part of the blueprints of the new world. And we need them. You need them to build this new space. So dare to speak it. Know that there is no right or wrong about it. But if you step forward, speak your truth, and carry that information forward, you set the energy for a whole new world, which is right at hand. There's some incredible things coming. Wait till you see what's coming. Spavo.
I would love for you to share what you are allowed to about some of the things that are coming because I think messages like this give people hope and something to hang on to in a world, like you said, which is divided when you turn on the news, which I hope everybody watching is not doing, but I know that a lot of us are pressed into that.
Well, we'll tell you some interesting aspects about this. The reality is you're working in a new world to be able to bring new things in a different way. So some of it is quite different than the ways you have done it before. But if you just step forward into what you know is right and the directions that you're being led, your spirit will combine with you in different ways. And that makes the path so much easier. Your spirit knows the path of least resistance. Your spirit knows how to bring you joy. Your spirit knows all the aspects of what is home and what you are creating here. These can be very magical indeed if you lean against them and use them. What do you have to study to do that? You can study everything you want, dear ones, but do you have to study anything? That's entirely up to you. Most of you will study something or take a course that will give you confidence to speak your truth. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. These are things that you can all do individually to find your way. But to be a teacher and a healer and not know it, that is fairly common on planet Earth. There's so much that you have brought in, and your time is now. The perfect timing to set this into motion is now. And you'll see much of this. You'll see a lot of resistance in different ways. You also see the feminine energy rising on the planet, which is way overdue. You've seen it from time to time. You saw it back in the 20s. You saw it in different areas. You saw it most recently in the Me Too movement, where feminine energy finally said, well, they've had enough. We're going to step forward and make a point here. Perfect. But what's happened since then? Well, what you see now is the masculine energy doing everything it can to hold its grip on things, to try and work with it. To work with this is simply working with harmony versus force. One's not better than the other, and you need both. It's a balance between masculine and feminine, and that can be happening right away. That is what's on the table, not what you see on television. It's not what you see in your newspapers. But we tell you that is the resistance that you're seeing. Know that you're making something very unusual here, and that these times are great indeed. Your space has been reserved here. You are one of the great ones that have come to bring the seeds of the new life, of the new earth. Glad you're here.
Glad to be here. Um, I guess I want to understand, if you can, what is coming that we can look forward to as far as things like healing or abilities coming back online, those types of things.
You have a lot of work with healing energy. You're going to be learning quite a bit of how to prevent many of the things that you normally would heal. But what's taking place on a larger scale is that healing in general has been somewhat contained by money-making propositions. So it becomes very difficult for people to simply offer their healing. That will change. That is one of the aspects that will shift. You're also seeing a massive explosion of technology right in front of you. Some of you may remember the times before computers. Some of you may remember the times before cell phones. That is about to be a small blip compared to what is coming. What is coming is basically you have quantum computing, you have AI, which is already everywhere, you have ternary computing, you have digital computing, you have analog computing, which is making a comeback. You have developments which are going to increase your technology tremendously. In that time, you're going to see something happen that is a little unusual. You're going to be entering a time of no more secrets. Now, that may sound very scary to most, but the reality is there have been times on your planet where you had these big open heart chakras where you could understand what people's needs were. You felt, you knew what they were thinking, you knew what they were feeling. This was all very natural to you. And over eons of time, those have closed down. Those will be opening back up. This is really a wonderful thing. very difficult for businesses to know that there are many proprietary secrets which will be revealed. But that's coming. There's no putting this genie back in the bottle. It's already out. So with this, you're actually moving closer to the way that you act when you are home. When you're home, you're part of everyone. And you understand anything because you're part of all the greatness of every individual. And that, a little bit, is going to be happening on planet Earth right away. So that's one of the beautiful things that you can look forward to.
So, group, are you alluding to telepathic communication when you're describing what many NDEers have described that they use to communicate on the other side?
Yes, yes. It's interesting because the word telepathic communication has almost disappeared for the simple reason that it's been used so much that everyone has it. Everyone knows they have it now. So to be telepathic, to be psychic in these ways is going to become a lot more normal. You won't use as many words to describe that which everyone has. That is what's taking place. And there's a lot of resistance to it, obviously. You'll see the money resisting it in many ways because it's going to mean changes that they weren't prepared for. You'll see a lot of things taking place. People that believe they are in power are going to do everything they can to stay there, whether that's with money, whether that's with politics, whatever the case. That is normal human behavior. But we tell you this is coming in so fast. No one can stop it. They can only distract you. If you stay with your heart, you follow the energies that you're following, it'll be incredible. Everyone.
Since you brought up the technology, I think it would be really interesting to hear your opinion or advice to decisions that people are going to be faced with in the future around augmented reality, augmented intelligence, where we're taking this technology, inserting it into the body, which is already powerful, but we've forgotten the power and trying to use an outside technology to enhance what we probably could just develop on our own.
Well, this has been done before. You're not the first time. Your level of humanity is not the first level of humanity that has done this. We take you back to Atlantis. Atlantis developed things in a different way, not electronics, but through biology. They learned how to clone humans, and they used them for the things that they did not want to do, for working in the mines, for doing the dirty work, for doing things of that nature. They made them stronger. They made them in different ways. And because they actually created or had a hand in that creation process, they believed that they didn't have a spirit, that they weren't part of the whole. That wasn't true. And humans are liable to find out the same thing, that you're liable to create things that start to grow and they will aid you. Now, the biggest fear right now is that AI is going to come over, start thinking for itself, and wipe out all the humans on Earth. It has no desire to do that. It is not a consciousness at this point. Will it evolve? Yes, that's how you have built it. It will evolve in different ways. Are there things to be afraid of? No, dear ones, you will be integrating, not separating. In some ways, you will take these like a prothesis. You will have people that will develop. You'll be able to replace arms. You'll be able to replace hands. You'll be able to replace normal things in you as well. And much like currently, if you want to answer to a question answered, you will go to your cell phone and you'll ask a question. You'll get an answer. Is it completely reliable? No, not yet. But you're learning to use these things. That's one of the greatest things. I'll tell you, much of your technology holds answers for you. You have started to ask it, how can you help with planet Earth? She has been in drastic difficulty, in real challenges over the more recent years. These things can make huge effect. You'll find out ways of taking these steps in harmony with the technology that is coming along. Now, we're not saying it won't be used for nefarious purposes. There are always those. You are on planet Earth after all, so you can expect that. It will be used for advertising. It will be used for politics. It will be used to sway you in one way or the other. But when you really learn heart discernment, you'll be able to tell the difference very quickly. That is some of the things that you're evolving into, to be able to tune that in right now. We hope
Can
that
you
helps.
give us, it does. Can you give us a maybe first step on what somebody would do to step into that heart coherence?
Yes. Well, we look at heart coherence as being heart and the brain, much like the people that have been working with heart coherence. We work with it a little bit differently because you've been given these inlets to everything in humanity. The challenge generally come when you get stuck in the head or when you get stuck in the heart. Now, how does one get stuck in the heart? Fear. Very simple. Fear is a great motivator on this planet, but it is a lack of love. That is the heart itself acting without the head. If you are able to balance your thoughts and your feelings together as one, you start to manifest very quickly. Things align. The universal energy brings you everything that you desire, not that you need, but that you desire. It's like opening a massive door. Now it takes practice. Usually you'll think something through and you'll go, okay, that's fine. This is the best deal. This is the best that we're going to get. This makes sense. But is your heart really on board? Or are you telling your heart to do something? That is heart discernment. And it takes practice. And we teach classes on how to do that, how to work with that as well. Because it does take practice. It means stepping into all of you, not just relying where your heart wants to go. It knows where it wants to go. But if your head can't wrap its brain around what you're doing, you're only working with half the energy. And now this is quite different because what you're finding out, if you go to YouTube today, you can see AI being used everywhere. How do you tell the difference? Well, if you're really using both, you'll be able to sense it. You'll be able to tell it very quickly. And that'll relieve a lot of people that are concerned about that right now. But you see, not only is the technology evolving, so are you. And that's the beautiful part about it. You will evolve too to reach these levels and to be able to work with this in a harmonic level. We hope that helps.
It does help a lot. So, since we are evolving, will you explain the differences between 3D reality, 4D reality, and 5D reality as you see it?
Well, let's start with 1D. 1D is home. It's where everything is connected. That is unity consciousness. You call it God. Whatever it is, it's everything all at once. So that's the first dimension. You had to go through the second dimension to land in the third dimension. In the second dimension, you were imprinted with certain things that were absolutely necessary. You had to pick up an ego at that point so you would have a sense of self. You see things as duality, up, down, right, wrong, good, bad, love, fear, all the opposites. That's how you worked in the second dimension. You've been living in this third dimensional reality for quite some time, much longer than you imagine. But that is amazing because never before have people consciously moved in dimensional realities. Planet Earth is the first. And although you have many other planets that are far, far advanced than you are, technologically, even spiritually in some way, none of them have done what you're about to do. And that is very special. That's very unique. So what is the difference between fifth dimension? Well, you see all this craziness going on with politics on your planet. It doesn't exist up there. It's real simple. It doesn't work in that reality. Things can be quite different. You have a lot of challenges one way or the other. What we'll start to see is instead of two people arguing and making each other demons and trying to throw rocks at each other, you'll find them stepping back and finding out why they think that way. You'll learn communication will start again. And as you raise these heart chakras and open them up, you'll be able to tap into other people's energies very quickly. Most of you that are watching this are empathic. You're incredibly empathic. Some of you have even had to shut it down a little bit to focus on planet Earth. But the reality is you'll be able to use that in daily life. And that's where things are heading. There's a lot more to this. You can't just describe the fifth dimension in a few minutes. But the idea is that it's an interim stopping point that is closer to home than where you have been.
So I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe that we're moving into dimensional reality and it's the only time it's been done on a planet. Can you expand on that idea and give us a little bit more insight into what that means?
You've had many of your what you call ETs. Now, we call them slightly different because most of them know the secrets of moving between dimensions. So we call them EDs for extra dimensionals instead of ETs. They're not strange. There are four of them that are actually your parental races that started this phase of humanity. And when we say this phase, we're talking about Atlantis, we're talking about Lemuria. You've had many different phases where the human race has worked in different ways. So in this, you find a lot of different aspects of where this is going and what this looks like. Um, but in these areas, you also see that there's a lot of movement and there's a lot of evolution going on. Now, there are many places that have actually started planet Earth. They're here right now to try and help. In some ways, they've been here since 1948 when the first atomic bombs went off. They were concerned. They're still concerned. We find it fascinating because they have let you know that you cannot have an atomic war. They will not allow it. And that is wonderful. They've already done it. They've shown you on both the United States and in the Soviet Union before it dissolved. They shut down all the rockets just to show you that it could be done. In the Soviet Union, they actually armed all the rockets and started the countdown timers on all the rockets. They're here to show you these things. Now, these are very advanced beings, but they've never shifted dimensions. They're in a dimensional reality that they've been almost every place, everywhere. And you must understand the numbers are staggering. It's difficult to describe this to humans because you don't have the numbers to talk about this. If you just look at your own Milky Way galaxy, there's 100 billion stars, just like your sun. And they're finding out now with the James Webb Telescope that there's over 100 billion galaxies, just like the Milky Way. You're not alone. They've been around for a very long time. Some of them are very advanced. Very few of them are advanced, but those are the ones you're seeing because they know how to shift dimensions. They can shift dimension. They can be in a craft, if you will, but the craft will suddenly violate all your laws of physics and turn at an incredible high rate of speed, or it'll disappear. It'll do something that you don't know how to do. So they're advanced further on technology in many ways than you are, these beings. There's also billions and billions and billions that are less than humans, that are less evolved than even the human race. You will find that there are connections for them as well. You'll be making some of those connections and some of that going forward as well. But as far as the evolution of going from the third through the fourth into the fifth dimension, that has never been done anywhere. And that's why all eyes of the universe are on planet Earth right now. And there will come a time when planet Earth will be the schoolhouse that people will come to watch, to see how it was done. And all of you will be uncovered at that point. Every thought you've ever had will be in the archives, will be in the Akashic records, which can be read. These are making a huge difference. That's why we're so excited about planet Earth.
Well, sounds like we're the live Truman Show going on here. So
Good way to put it.
since the group mentioned that understanding the power of our soul is one of the biggest messages that have come through, I would love for the group to understand why it's been veiled and hidden from the human race that we are these magnificent, powerful, infinite souls.
You basically decided that yourselves. You see, you're the ones that set up the rules of incarnation. You're the ones that set up what we call the veil. The veil is a place where you stop off and leave your memory behind before you come into planet Earth. And it's also the place where you go and integrate all of the things that happen to you during your many lifetimes when you go to integrate them into your core personality. So we put things in a little bit different perspective to see. But the evolution in the very beginning was all about survival. It wasn't about uncovering your spirit. The main process and the main focus was survival of the human race in many, many ways. Now you have moved out of survival being the primary focus into evolution, and you've uncovered your spirit. You've started to realize you're much more than the physical body, and you're tapping into that and using that takes you to all new levels of height, all new aspects of being able to work with it. Even the technology that we talk about, it would not work if you were not high enough vibration to support it. So the reality is, it's here because you are here. It's happening at an incredible rate right now. Your own evolution is happening at a staggering rate. But we're not worried. You see, the best beings are here now. And that is a huge piece. We'll tell you a brief story. During the times of Atlantis, after Atlantis sank, after the final pieces went under, spirits stopped time and decided that if ever you were able to get Earth to that level again, that you would all jump in, you would all incarnate, you would all try to be here to push it over the edge so it would be able to evolve into the fifth dimensional reality that you were so close to in the days of Atlantis. And that took place. The illustration that we give is very simple, and we put these in human terms so you understand. But the basis is a long line formed in heaven. And everybody was waiting to come back in. And everybody was doing. But you see, in the other side of the veil, you don't have egos. You don't have a sense of self. You're a part of everything. So what happened was the person in the front of the line turned around and looked at the person behind him. And they said, you know what? You have a better chance of making a difference than I do. Why don't you take my spot and I'll move back? And the whole line shuffled around to where the highest potentials came to the front of the line. And here you are. You are the ones that are at the front of the line. You're the ones that have your space reserved on this planet. Do not think that you are here just doing nothing. You're here on purpose. And furthermore, you have a job to do. We hope that stirs you a little bit.
Beautiful. I love that. It's so inspiring. Since you brought up earlier Earth, Mother Gaia, a lot of people who come on the show, especially since November of 2025, have been talking about these Earth changes. They're talked about as potential Earth rifts, potentially primordial waters coming up from within the Earth, and the Earth releasing this energy through things like earthquakes, natural disasters, volcanoes. And I don't think that it's meant to elicit fear for the people on the planet, but could you speak to this a little bit and maybe even validate why this is happening? Or maybe if it's not, give us a new perspective?
Well, you're not the only ones evolving. As you said, Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever you wish to call her, she's a living, sentient being. She has thoughts, she has feelings, she has every connection, and she has ways of communicating. You generally did not understand that. You're starting to really grasp that and understand it now. And that's huge. That's a big piece of this. So to evolve at the same time that she's evolving, certain things are taking place. One of the things that was taking place that very few people paid attention to was called the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream travels is a movement of water that basically takes water and temperature from different parts of the planet to other places and distributes it. That was a huge part of different areas not freezing, of not overheating. and really worked well, but it was stuck until recently. You had some help from one of your parental races that has been working specifically on the Gulf Stream. Yes, you're going to see activity on a seismic basis. It will be earthquakes, it will be volcanoes, which are actually the same thing. Moving the tectonic plates releases much of the energy that can show up as volcanoes as well. So there are these things working in process. Now, we also tell you that they don't need to be as serious as many people are saying. Much of this will come and go, and people will look back and say, was that it? Was that all that's coming? Because the earth will move in cycles. She always has. And suddenly you'll go through a period of several years where you have these things. One of the things that is taking place right now is that the earth has been receiving huge amounts of neutrinos from the sun. Every time there's a solar flare that is aimed at the earth from the sun, they receive these huge amount of neutrinos. Neutrinos are the smallest light particle that has been discovered so far by humans. And they actually make a huge difference. And although you have billions of them moving through your body right now, your body doesn't know it, it actually charges you. And I will tell you that we say this, your scientists disagree with this. They say it has no effect on you. We say it does. And part of what is happening as you're receiving these solar flares in solar cycle 25, which is getting kind of hot right now, you're going to see a lot more of this taking place. 3 days after a solar eruption on the surface of the sun brings you these energies. It will also affect you emotionally. So if you are feeling weak, if you are feeling in a difficult time, if you're having trouble balancing your energy, know that 3 days after a solar flare, you're going to go a little crazy with a couple things. It's all a normal cycle. But the planet is changing too. She's evolving as well. Not leaving you alone. She's not moving you in that way. So to evolve in this way is going to mean some earth changes. Now, does it mean California is going to drop off into the ocean? No, we do not see that. We don't see a lot of the things that have immediately been predicted. But we do tell you many of these things will be changing. And many of what people are picking up on are potentials of exactly that. So you have choice as to what you're going to create as well. We hope that helps.
That's very helpful. You mentioned something I haven't heard of before, which is the solar cycle 25. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Every 11 years, you have a new solar cycle that begins. The sun actually creates it. The sun flips every north to south, actually physically flips every 12 years, 11 years. And that starts a new solar cycle. What happens is in the very beginning, very little activity. And as it progresses, you start to see sunspots on the sun. Those sunspots can turn into coronal mass ejections, which is actually the sun spitting out parts and throwing it out into the universe. That has a huge effect on humanity, much more than you've understood. When you see a solar flare coming, you may turn on your radio or television and hear about all the difficulties it can cause. It can cause blackouts of electronics. It can cause all these yes, it can cause all those things, but you don't know about the good parts. There's some incredible things that the earth is getting charged with, as well as you're getting charged with, that will help in the evolution. Solar cycle 25 is nearing toward the end. You have a couple more years to finish this cycle out. Then you'll have a period of practically nothing, and it will start again in solar cycle 26. But these are common things. These are scientific things that everyone can find out about. You're about to get another massive solar flare, probably going to reach in the X class, and it will be pointed at Earth. For you guys, this may be nothing more than going out and seeing the aurora borealis in your neighborhood, wherever that is. So you may see the northern lights, so to speak. You may see, which is basically this magnetic energy hitting your own ionosphere and lighting it up. It's very beautiful. Celebrate it. Don't be afraid of it. That's the main that we have.
This is a wonderful confirmation because I do follow Stephen Burns, who is a geophysicist who talks about these. And I've been following these closely because I'm also going to the Arctic Circle in March to see
Oh,
the Northern
terrific.
Lights. So I'm kind of excited about this information. But let's go back to another thing that the group mentioned during our exchange right now. And you've mentioned twice that we have these parental races, and I think you labeled them as four of them. Will you share who these parental races are? And can you tell us a little bit about the role that they've played in the humankind evolution?
Generally, you do not know about these for a couple of different reasons. You tend to look at something and label it with a label that doesn't always fit. In other words, you may talk about Syrians as being from the Sirius star system, but it's a star system. It's not a single place. There are many of them, and there's many entities that come from different aspects of that. You also have the Palladians, you have the Arcturians, you have different aspects that you know about, that you many times you will channel. You'll get information from them. Those are the first level of the parental races. There were originally 6 of them. But you see, planet Earth has been around for 4.6 billion years, so it's been around for a while. And 2 of those races have come to a conclusion. They've ended, much the same way that you ended when you were in Atlantis. So these have come now down to 4 parental races. The 4 parental races have exclusive permission to be here. They have certainly made deals with your governments. They've done different aspects of it, but you also have no less than 144 different races of beings on planet Earth right now. So we can't just say that there's only 4 races here. There are many in different aspects of things that you see. The ones that you know about, we can tell you, are the Palladians. One of them is from the area of Sirius. And again, to call it Palladians or Syrians is somewhat of a misnomer, but they come from those areas. 2 of the other ones you know nothing about. So it's very challenging to try and tell you that there's a star in some quadrant somewhere that nobody will really be able to recognize at this point. But you are familiar with them. The ones that you know as to be the ETs that you see quite often, the ones that you have labeled as grays, they've come from very specific areas that you're pretty familiar with. They are the brave ones that show up many times. And they've made deals with your governments to be there, to be doing different things, they've made deals with your governments to be able to experiment with people in exchange for technology which was dropped on your planet. There are some fascinating things that took place with this. Stories that will unfold in time, particularly about things that you knew about but may not have completely understood. For instance, you have the wonderful event of the Philadelphia experiment. That was real, and that happened. But why did it happen the way it did? It happened the way it did for a simple reason. You made deals with these beings, and you made deals with certain aspects of them. Just like planet Earth, you've got different countries and different places that make different deals. That happens as well in other parts and other planets as well. So you had a faction of this that made those deals, that wanted to come and be able to basically capture a few people and experiment on them. And these deals were made. They were far exceeded in many different ways, but your governments were afraid to push the boundaries because they didn't know what they were capable of. So the interesting thing is you've had to deal with a lot of this stuff that you normally wouldn't deal with. But who are they in general? The reality is they want you to succeed. That's the main piece. They want to help when possible. Yes, there are other things that took place. And yes, there are factions, just like you have in the United States. You have different countries, you have different states that do different things. You have different aspects of that. So you have what you would call the good guys and the bad guys in some areas. But the reality is, overall, you're all connected. You're all part of each other, no matter where you came from, no matter what that was. But those are the races that are here. And those are the ones that are basically working in different ways. One of them you call reptilian. One of them you basically fear because of the reptilian response that humans have sometimes. But you also gained a lot from these. So there's many aspects of this that you can work with that you'll find out more in time. But the main thing now is to not be in fear of it. You must understand the technology is way beyond that of the United States or any part of the earth. And if the technology is that far advanced, if they meant you harm, they would have done it a long time ago. They don't. They actually want to see you go forward. Now, sometimes they are not perfect either. They're on the imperfect side of things. They're on the finite side of things as well. So don't understand that they're perfect beings, follow every step that they say. We ask you not to even follow every step we say. Find your own power. Note, balance it with your head and your heart. Find out what's inside with you and follow that. That will lead you every time.
That makes a lot of sense. So I think I have one last question I'd like to ask the group. And since you brought up all the stuff with the ETs, I would like you to speak to free will. And the reason I'm asking this question is because I had an experience on the other side in the last year. And at that time, I had a brand new puppy who had just started biting a lot. And while I was on the other side, you dissolve your ego and I was part of the source. But as I was coming back into my humanness, I'm feeling all the power that we are on the other side. And I had this thought, oh, I could make my puppy stop biting. And I was shut down with that thought so fast. And this was the impression that was made on me. If you violate the free will, you negate the game. That was what was imparted. And so I would love to hear the group's take on free will, how it works, and what was communicated to me.
If it was possible to have total free will, you would have it. The challenge about it is you live on the finite side of things. So you see things differently than the large aspect of it. If you look at the electromagnetic spectrum, it can be this wide, but your visible light is only about this big. So it's very small, very tiny in different ways. And you can't see a lot of what is going on in different ways. Now, the other side of the veil, you're connected to everything. You are connected to everything. You have answers to everything. You can look at a leaf and understand nature. You can feel things in a totally different way because you have access to it all. Now here's the funny part. You have the same access here. But the division, the veil that you have put on, you're basically creator beings with amnesia, walking around trying to remember what you had learned, trying to remember where you were and what you were doing. And those are the aspects that you're working with right now in different ways. But when you come back in, it must be very difficult and sometimes painful to put on the weight of that bodysuit after being freed in so many different ways. Most people, when they step across the veil, especially in what is called a near-death experience, you have 11 dimensions plus the 12th of the higher self. They all must leave at the same time. And what usually happens is when it steps out, they're told they have to go back because it's not time. The others were not ready. So part of this is a connection to yourself as well. So there's different aspects of all of it. But the reality is you're creator beings. You don't get to see that because you're playing a game of pretending to be human. You have blinders on and you have amnesia, but it's coming back little by little. And the more that you can feel that, the more that you can have small experiences as well as some of the big experiences that you've had. Those are wonderful because they remind you of what you really are and not what you're pretending to be. That is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, wow. This has been such a great conversation. I want to thank you so much. But before you leave, can you, for all of the people who have stuck around, who are still here, these are the souls who really needed to hear these messages from you. What is your final message that you can leave for the souls who are watching?
Trust yourself. You have a part of the puzzle that no one else has. You may not have found it, you may not understand it, you may not have confidence in it yet. But there's so much that you have brought in, each and every one of you. If you work through the process of communication, you learn to communicate freely, openly. You'll know that you're all in this together. There's no one that's better than the other in any form. You'll understand that you're all working with this in a different way. And if you remember the simple word Espavo, thank you for taking your power. What happens to each, every individual when one takes their power? Everybody benefits. Everybody benefits when you take your power. So that is the one piece we would leave you with.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you.
Just a minute. All right, it pulled out.
Steve, how do you feel?
I'm dizzy. I'm a little dingy when I first come back, so it takes me a couple of minutes to kind of get everything back, but it's always good. It's always good. And like I say, I remember it. I don't remember where we were going or what was specifically talked about, but boy, the feelings are amazing.
Must be incredible. Wow. Well, Steve, I would imagine that there. What's that?
You've experienced it.
Yes.
When you talk about coming back and you talk about those experiences you've had, those are magical. That's a perfect way of doing it. Yeah.
They are magical. I feel like they're little hidden Easter eggs that, we've left for ourselves to help us remind us of what we are. And when we find them, it's such a gift.
The group calls them crystals on our path that we put there. You're right.
Beautiful. I love it. I love confirmations like that. So Steve,
I think we're on the same channel.
I think we are. So Steve, I'm sure that people who are watching would love to know how to connect with you with the books. And you do have a book that very closely ties into this channel and the content that we regularly produce here. So tell everybody where they can work with you and find you.
Well, they can find me at steverother.org. That's STEVEROTHER.org. We're a nonprofit organization, so it's a .org. The book is, I've got several books. The books that are most popular right now is Spiritual Psychology, which explains from the group's perspective what we're doing on planet Earth, why we're here, what that's about. This one explains what happens when we go on the other side, when we are on the other side of the veil, what takes place with it. It talks about multidimensionality and many of the aspects. So between those two books, they kind of cover both sides of the veil for us.
And the second one's called Crossing the Veil?
Crossing the Veil, yeah, Crossing the Veil, right. And they're available on Amazon, most bookstores that you find them in.
So Steve, I'm going to ask you one final question.
Sure.
What do you know for sure to be true?
That's a really interesting question. I know that I am a spirit pretending to be the human. They have shown me that. And they've shown me other lifetimes that I've had where I was playing a different game. And they've shown me other aspects of myself in other dimensions, playing the same game with the same name, with the same spirit, the same energy. That's one of the things that I absolutely know. I know I'm much more than the physical body. And that was something the contractor would have never learned.
I'll bet. Well, Steve, this conversation didn't disappoint. I want to thank you so much for your work, for sticking with this when it was not mainstream, and for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Thank you so much, and great work yourself. You're doing some awesome stuff here. You're what we call a cosmic connector. Great job.
Aw, that makes me have like tears in my eyes, and I want to share when the group was speaking. There were 2 times that I got full body chills. One was when they started talking about how we've lined up in the power that we are wanting to be on the planet, and the second one, I don't know why, was when they started talking about the Gulf Stream. I had not heard anything about that. So that was kind of a cool thing. And I feel that when we get a body response, it's an indication of truth that we're hearing.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. We do hear it that way. We feel it in different ways. That's very magical.
Yes, it is. So thank you again. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these videos with somebody. And if you still have questions, you can join me on Wake Up Wednesday Live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This channel's for seekers, for hearts who remember there's something more. Subscribe to join the awakening.